Okay, so let's pretend the devs decided to throw in a 2v8 mode with no type of balance and all out chaos. What killer would be perfect for each killer? This is mainly involving just the power and no add-ons involved, just the base power and that's it. Only because with add-ons it could kind of change things, so we're just gonna keep it simple. I think the perfect killer to partner with Trapper will be the Nurse. I say this because let's say the Trapper lays out the traps all over the map, right? The Nurse can cover that large distance as soon as that survivor gets trapped and hopefully get insta down if she gets there in time, which is like a 75% chance that she will. But if a survivor manages to get out in time, she can just pursue them and then down them easily, or at least try to down them easily if she's in the area or she's like already close by because the trap is already gonna hold them down. With Wraith, I think it's kind of, for him it will be kind of complicated. He could kind of pair with anybody. I see his power doesn't really involve like holding anyone down or setting someone up for something, so it's kind of hard to decipher who he would pair with or be the best to pair with, I should say. So for him, I say it's anyone's go. The perfect killer to pair with Hillbilly I think would be the Death Slinger. The Death Slinger could shoot them, hold them down in place, and then the Hillbilly could use his chainsaw to just instantly down them. This will of course work if the Hillbilly and Death Slinger are close together. It wouldn't even matter if Death Slinger makes like a far shot too, because Hillbilly could still reach and like thrust forward to down the survivor with his chainsaw, so it could work mildly far and up close of course as well. Who I think will be the perfect killer to be paired with Nurse is Pinhead. I say this because Pinhead will be better at holding them down through collision and stuff like that. I can imagine a scenario where Pinhead is chasing the survivor at Shack and the survivor is on the other side of the wall where it doesn't have the window. Pinhead could use the gateway to chain the survivor through collision, and then the Nurse could follow up and, you know, teleport through that collision and then hit the survivor. At least that's the best way I see it. Deathslinger can hold them down too, but he can't do it through collision, so that's why I give it to Pinhead. With Pinhead, it will be like a 1-2-3 chain, and then the Nurse could quickly blink through collision or blink close to the survivor that's chained up and then hit them, and then they could just repeat that process. I don't really see no one too unique for Huntress. I guess she could just hit anybody with her hatchet, and then anyone could really follow up on that, or at least most killers would. Yeah, she doesn't really have like a setup or anything like that, so it's kind of hard to pair with someone more specific. But the best way I see it is that she throws a hatchet, it hits a survivor, and then another killer follows up with something else, I guess, in their power. Michael's power is a bit generic as well. He can instant down them by himself, but he would have to of course reach tier 3, so he doesn't really have a setup or nothing special like that either, so he's more on the generic side where he could just M1 and then someone else could follow up. Hag I actually see going pretty well with Skull Merchant. I could kind of see there being scenarios where Skull Merchant could set up her drones around anything that she wants to defend, where there's a totem or gen, and then the Hag could kind of place her trap right underneath her drone. So the fact that the drone is already activated is one thing, but if it goes into that mode where it's on but it's just like in scanning mode, the survivors can try to deactivate the drone, but the Hag's trap can interrupt it. And if they try to get rid of the Hag's trap, the Skull Merchant scan will only just detect them. I guess the best way I see it is like a 2-person action or 2 survivor action, that's to say, where the 2 survivors have to coordinate simultaneously to get rid of both the drone and the trap at the same time, and that by itself just sounds exhausting. I can see them being pretty well together. For Doctor, I think Bubba will be a pretty cool call, a unique call actually. I can actually see Doctor constantly shocking the survivor, for the survivor doesn't have to vault a window or vault or drop a pallet, and then as the Doctor is doing that, Bubba could kind of rev up his chainsaw and then down the survivor in the process. I see that alone being pretty powerful. Bubba I think would go pretty well with Deathslinger. Deathslinger could hold them down for pretty long, so Deathslinger would just shoot the survivor, chain the survivor, hold them in position, and then Bubba would rev up his chainsaw, down the survivor instantly. Just think about that, this sound is extremely fucking broken, bro. Freddy's power is pretty generic. I mean, he could slow the survivors down, but that's about it. So I could kind of see him going well with anybody. I mean, it will be pretty generic. His power is pretty generic, so he can have the potential to insta down with killers that have insta down, like Bubba or Hillbilly, but then the survivors will have to be in a dream world and go through the snares, and then both the killers have to worry if there's a pallet nearby. Yeah, Freddy doesn't really go with anybody too special or specific, at least not that I see. For Pig, I see Skull Merchant fit in pretty well with her. The Pig could down a survivor, put on a reverse bear trap, and the Skull Merchant could just pit drones at the jigsaw boxes, so every time the survivor would try to go and get the reverse bear trap off their head, they will wind up getting exposed by the drone, and their timer is depleted on their reverse bear trap. That alone just sounds like too much. I mean, I guess if the drone is in scanning mode, you could have some luck, but if the drone is just constantly active, you're gonna have a hard time getting that reverse bear trap off your head. You just might not. Like, yeah, their power really goes together like chicken chicken and french fries. I mean, Skull Merchant's drones are limited, so the survivor can be lucky and pick the right jigsaw box that doesn't have a drone on it, and they may potentially get the trap off their head, but it's still chances to that. You just never know if the jigsaw box that gets the trap off your head has the drone hovering right over it, so good luck with that, I guess. For Clown, I don't really see no one going too well with him. Maybe it's the same situation for Freddy where it'll be Bubba, because Bubba can insta down and Clown could slow the survivor down, so Clown could kind of set up that insta down for Bubba by slowing the survivor down, so maybe them two are the best together, or at least for Clown I should say. For Spirit, her power is not generic. She doesn't really have nothing specific to pair with the other killer's powers. Like, she just phases to you at much faster speeds and then hits you, so it's like anyone could kind of like follow up with that and insta down the survivor at that point. So for her, it's not no one like too specific, at least not one that I see. For Legion, I think the twins would be pretty powerful for Legion, or potentially powerful. If most survivors are in the area, Legion could just injure those multiple survivors in the area, and then Victor could follow up and then start downing those survivors while Legion picks them up and then puts them on the hook, and then they could keep following that process. Literally, the only way to counter this is if the survivors are not together at all, or they can be together and just wait for Victor to down one survivor and then kick Victor just to end that whole slugging process. Yeah, but them two have extreme potential together. For Plague, it wasn't really anyone that I saw that she has too much potential with. Maybe Skull Merchant if they plan on holding the game hostage for a long time. Plague could throw up on the gens. If the survivors touch them, they immediately get infected, and they also have to worry about drones, so I could definitely see that being the issue. But outside of that, there's nothing I really see. I don't really see too much potential with Plague and another killer together. For Ghostface, it was a pretty hard one, but I have to choose Deathslinger if they were like really coordinated. If Ghostface has a survivor 99, Deathslinger could shoot that survivor, hold them in place, then Ghostface could stop exposing the survivor and then down them in the process. That's the best way I see it. For Demogorgon, I guess Skull Merchant. Demogorgon could set down his portals near generators, and the survivors also have to worry about Skull Merchant's drones on top of that, so that could create everlasting games of just having to get rid of portals and drones. Sounds devastating. A killer I actually see going pretty well with Oni is Legion. Legion could do the work of injuring survivors as Oni collects the blood and powers up the Blood Fury. The only counter to this I can really see is if the survivors just don't stick together at all, but since the Legion could really injure survivors really easily, the Oni could still collect blood, and then maybe the survivors might not want to heal, so there would just be a whole bunch of blood lying around. Then the Oni could just collect that blood and then keep powering up his power. I see it being pretty time consuming, but it could definitely work. For Deathslinger is Bubba. Like I said, Deathslinger shoots, Bubba does the chainsawing, goes together perfectly. I think the perfect killer to go with Pyramid Head will be Pinhead, so you have two pain lovers. I can see Pinhead chaining the survivors through collision as Pyramid Head sets up the punishment on the dam and then shoots the survivor through the collision, so them two will have great chemistry like that. I can actually see that being pretty satisfying to pull off actually. Even if it's not through collision, and if they was to just use it out in the open, that will work phenomenally also. For Blight, Blight just rushes at you and injures you, so I don't really see him being too crazy with anyone specific. For twins, like I said, Legion, I just see the chemistry of Legion constantly injuring survivors and Victor slugging down the survivors. I see that chemistry being elite. That's if it works according to plan though, because the survivors can't just split up, but if most of them are together and if Legion does injure most of them, that could lead to multiple survivors getting slugged down, so twins and Legion works together perfectly. For Trickster, I think Pinhead will be perfect. Pinhead could just chain down the survivors, and then Trickster can throw his blades at the survivors that's being chained. The chains do break easily though, so Trickster will have to be on top of it, but if Trickster is on top of it, that alone just sounds annoying. Oh my god. Nemesis can't really set up anything for the survivors, so I don't really see his power going too well with any other killer specifically, so I'm gonna have to pass on him. For Pinhead, it was a bit of a tricky one, but I actually think Pyramid Head will work best for him. I was gonna say Bubba, but the fact that the chains do break pretty easily, Bubba might have to keep revving up his chainsaw, and Pyramid Head could attack faster in general with his power of punishment of the dam, so as soon as Pinhead chains the survivor, Pyramid Head could place his blade down into the ground and then hit the survivor through collision, or if that survivor's out in the open, Pyramid Head could just hit that survivor, and then they could just repeat that process. For Artist, I think Nurse would be pretty powerful. I can see Artist launching her crows from a distance, it locking on to a survivor, and then Nurse noticing that, teleporting over to that survivor, making sure that survivor doesn't get rid of the crows on their back, and eventually when Nurse gets to injure, Artist can injure that survivor as well from a distance, since the crows will still be on their back from getting injured from the Nurse. Their chemistry sounds so satisfying together. Like, I'm really curious to see how they will work with like a Nurse and Artist main. Like, I think that would be a nightmare going against. Oh my god, like you will have to watch out for everything. Oh my god. For Sadako, I don't see no one being too well with her. Her power is pretty generic, so any killer could kind of capitalize on what she does, or at least most of them I should say. For Dredge, it was a tricky one only because of the Nightfall. I'm guessing if 2v8 was really a thing, the Nightfall, the killer playing with Dredge, I'm guessing we'll have the same vision as Dredge when Nightfall happens, so I guess his chemistry is kind of in the air with any other killer as well. It's like the Dredge's partner has to see through Nightfall as well, you know what I'm saying? For Wesker, I don't see no one's too specific being well with him. If anything, he would kind of just push them away from his killer mate, or killer partner I should say. So I actually don't see him being too well with anybody specifically. I guess if maybe him and Pinhead could go together, Pinhead could set up the survivor by holding them down with chains, and then Wesker could bound forward and try to grab the survivor in the process. I'm guessing that's how it could work, because Pinhead is slowing them down as Wesker is catching up with his powers, so maybe that could work. But I don't know, Wesker is still kind of up in the air for me. For Knight, I guess he just has his guards. I really don't see no one going too well with Knight. I mean, maybe Pinhead, the Knight could get a guard on a survivor, and as soon as that happens, Pinhead could pursue that survivor getting chased by the guard, chain them down for they don't move, and then the guard would hit them in the process. But then the Knight will have to follow up with another successful guard patrol on a survivor, or guard chase I should say, so that alone could be pretty time consuming. So I guess if they coordinate well, then they could do pretty alright together, and I can see the combo being pretty cool, but it's still pretty time consuming. For Skull Merchant, it's literally a tie between Hag and Pig. The question is who's more annoying, I should say. So with Skull Merchant and Hag will stop the survivor from disabling the drone, and that will stall the game in the process. But with Pig, if a survivor has a reverse bear trap on their head and a drone is placed over a jigsaw box, and that jigsaw box is your key to get that trap off your head, and if Skull Merchant is constantly on top of activating those drones, you're gonna have a tough time surviving, and you just might possibly just die. So I guess with Pig, it will be more annoying. It's like, yeah, the survivor can ignore the drone, and the drone can mark them as they're searching through the jigsaw box, but that will only alert Skull Merchant for them to get down by her, insta down I should say, and then they will just wind up getting hooked, unless Pig wants to place another trap on their head, but that will result in Pig losing another one of her traps. So they also go together perfectly though. I could see it being annoying. Singularity, there was no one specific I could see him going well with. I guess maybe Nurse. Singularity and Nurse will constantly be on top of survivors, so as soon as Nurse injures the survivor with her just teleporting and hitting the survivor, Singularity could just spawn right on top of the survivor getting chased, or just got hit I should say. But then if a survivor does have the EMP, they could just disable the slipstream on their back if the Nurse chasing that slipstream survivor has the EMP. So I guess they have the best potential together. But that was it. Do you agree with most of these killer combos? Do you want to see a 2v8 mode in the game where this could actually potentially happen? Let me know down below. Love y'all, take care, I'm gonna see you on the next one, and peace.